Hello, everyone. Welcome aboard the Fantasy Fast Track. Today, we're talking about players that you must avoid in the first 10 rounds of your fantasy draft. The player you must avoid in the first round is Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is coming in at the RB5 and is being picked in late round one. His rushing production has dropped off from 5.5 in his standout year down to 4.5 last year. But that isn't the biggest concern. The biggest concern is the fact that he was coming in around 30 receptions in the last few years, and that was boosting his PPR totals. But 11% of Anthony Richards' completions last year went to the running back. And not only is he struggling with a contract, he is fighting injury, and he still hasn't recovered from his ankle injury from last year, where he should have been fully healthy this upcoming preseason. In round two, you must avoid Davante Adams. Coming in at wide receiver 8 in the second round is Davante Adams. Davante Adams had his second best year last year. He had the second most receiving yards, which is 1,516 yards. He had his most reception touchdowns, which was 14, and he had his second most targets he's ever had. But he's reaching that age cliff, and you don't want to be caught holding the bag with a high draft pick in the second round. And the Raiders are falling apart at the seams. They have Jimmy Garoppolo, who is struggling with injury early in preseason and has struggled with injury throughout his career. So he may end up just catching passes from a backup quarterback. And on top of that, Josh Jacobs is still holding out, so they won't have a rushing attack, and the Raiders just in general offensively are going to be struggling. For round three, you must avoid T. Higgins. T. Higgins is currently being drafted at wide receiver 14, which is being drafted at his ceiling because he has never finished as a wide receiver 14. In last year, he finished as wide receiver 17, then 21, wide receiver 22, and then 2020, wide receiver 30. Also, last year, with Ja'Marr Chase on the field, he averaged wide receiver 23. You must avoid T. Higgins. In round four, you must avoid Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is being drafted as wide receiver 16, and he finished inside the top 24 wide receivers last year just 3 times. Brandon Aiyuk, his fellow wide receiver on the 49ers, finished inside the top 10 wide receivers 4 times last year. Avoid Deebo Samuel and just pick up Brandon Aiyuk 3 rounds later. In round 5, you must avoid George Kittle. George Kittle is being drafted as the tight end 4. George Kittle did finish as the tight end 2 last year in half PPR, but he was boosted by 11 total touchdowns. Before that, he had never finished with higher than 6 touchdowns. So unless you're counting on another outlier season for George Kittle, you must avoid him. He also only had an 11% target share when him, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Aiyuk, and Christian McCaffrey were all on the field at the same time. So unless you're counting on everybody getting hurt, which with the 49ers is a possibility, you must avoid George Kittle. We are now halfway through. If you're getting value from this video, please subscribe so you can get other videos just like this. In round 6, you must avoid Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert is currently being drafted as a tight end 6, but he only finished better than a tight end 5 2 times last year. There are other players in this round that you can be looking for with higher upside, such as Christian Watson, Darren Waller, and Brandon Aiyuk. In round 7, you must avoid Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara will be starting off the year with a suspension, which will leave room for Kendre Miller and Jamal Williams to take over that backfield while in his absence. He also has been struggling, and the wheels are falling off the last few years. He has been losing touchdowns. His reception totals have dropped by 30, and he also has dropped in his yards per carry from elite 5.0 yards per carry to a 3.7 or a 4 yards per carry. Avoid Alvin Kamara. In round 8, you must avoid George Pickens. George Pickens had less than 6 targets in the last 9 games of the season last year after their bye. Not only is George Pickens not earning targets, the Steelers are becoming a rush-heavy attack, and that is looking to carry over into this next season. In round 9, you must avoid Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney is currently being drafted as the wide receiver 42, but he only had 20 targets last year and never played more than 40% of the snaps the whole entire season for the Chiefs. He does have tremendous abilities, but he is injury plagued and will not see very much time on the field. In round 10, you must avoid Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell is currently being drafted as the RB42, but we all know that that will not even happen. He has struggled with injuries over his whole entire career, and he only played 5 games last year. And if he does make it on the field, he will not be catching the ball at all. He totaled 3 receptions last year. And even though he is the handcuff to Christian McCaffrey, there are higher upside players that you can draft at this point in your draft, such as Zay Flowers and Quentin Johnston, who have high upside as rookie wide receivers. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you got value from this, please subscribe and look forward to other videos just like this to help you on your fantasy football league.